Hi there. In this video, I will cover rest of the two plots, which is correlation matrix and box plot chart. Alright, so if I come back here in the Tableau, these are the two charts, the histogram and the box plot. That is what we covered. Now let's come back to the correlation matrix. So correlation matrix is nothing but the extension of the scatter chart that you showed, but since it has a lot of different variables, the visualization becomes easy to understand whether variables are linearly correlated, positive or negative, or is there any sort of relationship present apart from linear relationship into the variable. So what I can do is I can simply select, let's say, profit and profit over here, and then sales and sales. As you can see, I'm selecting all of these same variable in both rows and columns, sum of quantity and like now it has created a matrix kind of a structure. So we have quantity and profit, metric. We have sales profit metric, and then we have profit metric. Similarly, we have sales metric, sales quantity metric, and similarly profit sales, and profit quantity. So this is a simple representation of correlation, but correlation matrix, but it's really not in the form because it has a proper scatter chart. So like I suggested in the previous video, we go into the analysis and uncheck this aggregate measures, and now you can see it very meaningful that first of all this particular section will always be positively correlated. Why? Well, pretty much we have already guessed it, but if not, the profit is, we are checking profit with profit, so it has to be linearly correlated. Similarly, sales we are checking with sales, quantity we are checking with quantity. So since both and y-axis is same, that's why they are linearly upward correlated. But if we see sales and profit, we see some sort of a positive trend, both on the little bit on the positive side and on the negative side. But if I see profit with quantity, it is not showing any sort of trend. It is showing us straight growth, not upward or downward, but a straight growth. So what it is indicating that irrespective of what the quantity is, the profit is not changing much. So this way, if you have other different variables, if for example even the discount, say for example discount here and discount here, and what I'll do is from standard to fit width, and you can clearly see whether there is any sort of relationship. So discount is also not showing any signs, but it is indicating that on 0% discount is high, followed by 20% discount. But in case of 60% discount with the sales is really high over here. So not a positive, but a little bit of linear trend, not so linear trend what it is showing, but it's kind of a very intuitive way by which you can really analyze. So for example, quantity and sales, we see a lot of quantity over here, but when the sales is increasing, the quantity is becoming less. So maybe it's like a little bit linearly downward, that for higher value sale the quantity is less, because maybe that's what. So for example, we are purchasing a higher electronic good, then obviously we will purchase just one quantity. But here in this case, it is like 5 different quantities which have been purchased. So it shows a little bit of near negative linear correlation, and where that is what it is expected. And in that way, you can explore other relationships between the variables by plotting like this and by creating the scatter plot metric. Now let's go ahead and create the last chart, which is box plot. So what I'll do is I'll select the profit and go into the show me, and here I am not getting the, so it has 0 or more dimension, 1 or more measure. So let me select probably sales quantity. So in case of quantity, it is showing me, and if it is not showing you, then what you can do is, like in this case of profit or in case of sales, what it basically looks at the aggregate measures. Once you go into the analysis and remove the aggregate measure, that's what I just tried to do, and by that this particular option will be enabled. So in sales, I've just created, so this is my scatter plot, and I can even select one dimension to better present it, for example region. So these are my different scatter plot. It's not properly plotted because there are a lot of outliers, a lot of values which are going beyond. So what I can do is remove this and come back to profit and select the scatter plot. So again, not a very meaningful, but what I can do is, not even with the slice it will work. I can try and change it, maybe let's say discount, to get a proper figure. And yeah, in case of discount, you can see it is properly coming, and what it is having is this shaded area. This particular value is basically median, and this is upper whisker and lower whisker. So what it basically, upper boundary or lower boundary, and this is whisker. So what it basically has, as you can see, upper whisker, 60% of values are coming in the upper whisker, upper hinge, median, lower hinge, and lower whisker. And any value which is above the upper whisker is basically treated as the outlier. So what you can see is the distribution of data. So for example, in case of central, there are comparatively higher discount when you come to the east, west, or south, which is pretty consistent. So that's the the interpretation that you can get. Also, there are some outliers both in all of these different cases, which are these. It's up to you whether you want to include the outliers in your analysis or not. Sometimes you exclude it because it influences it, well, or sometimes you do the treatment, probably make it under a certain value or average, or based on what your analysis is saying. But the idea is that you get this analysis to really understand how your data distribution is, and now it is clearly indicating that in central we are giving comparatively higher discount than any other one, and we can then look into this treatment. And but what we know is the central value will going to inflate whenever we are doing any data modeling or statistical modeling. So that's about the box and plot and correlation metrics to visualize and get the idea from the data. And I will meet you in the new video, the new topic.